Trapped in a cycle of self-criticism, many find their minds replaying the same worry-filled scenes on endless loop. One moment, a person recalls an offhand remark from yesterday's meeting, replaying it in slow motion and imagining every possible interpretation, each more damning than the last. They think, I'm incompetent, I shouldn't have spoken up, I'll never be as good as they are. Later, as darkness falls and other tasks await, that inner tape switches tracks to tomorrow's to-do list. What if I forget something important in my presentation? What if I lose my job? What if I fail? Every anxious scenario blossoms into a constellation of fears, each anchored in an imagined worst-case outcome. In these spirals, the mind seems to hold no off switch. Once it locks onto negativity, escape feels impossible until exhaustion forces a hazy drift into sleep. Other loops take the form of perfectionism. An individual pores over a completed report 5 times, hunting for flaws, dismissing praise as mere politeness. It's not good enough, runs the inner refrain. Their thoughts circle around improvements and revisions. Change this word, adjust that chart, reorganize this section. Even when the final version gains approval, the moment shimmers briefly before the mind zeroes in on a minor imperfection. What began as constructive refinement becomes an obsessive churn, draining energy and compromising perspective. Every achievement fades under the weight of relentless self-scrutiny. Yet another loop emerges in the realm of self-doubt and comparison. Upon scrolling through social media feeds, one encounters peers flaunting career milestones, travel adventures, or seemingly perfect family moments. Instantly, internal dialogue surfaces. Why am I stuck in this same routine? Why haven't I achieved as much? Everyone else seems happier, more successful, more fulfilled. This comparison loop intensifies with every scroll as negative thoughts sprout like weeds around imagined inadequacies. Even objective evidence of one's own progress, praise from a manager, a successfully delivered project, feels overshadowed by the towering highlights of others' lives. The relentless contrast leaves individuals feeling diminished and demoralized. Rumination about past mistakes constitutes another common loop. After an awkward social interaction, perhaps a mispronounced name or a poorly timed joke, the mind replays the event repeatedly. I sounded foolish. They must think less of me. I destroyed my reputation. Even minor lapses metamorphose into character judgments, feeding a loop where guilt and shame coil tighter with each rewind. Attempts to redirect attention often prove futile, as the brain, wired to seek resolution, returns to the troubling memory, hoping to find a fix that never comes. The result is a mental quagmire. Each revisit amplifies negative emotion, and the mind remains stuck in a loop of recrimination. These repetitive thought patterns share common features. They thrive on unchallenged assumptions, distort information through negative filters, and resist natural dissipation. Normally, a fleeting worry about a missed appointment would fade when one realizes time remains. A mild embarrassment over a misstep would dissipate when a friend laughs it off. But when loops take hold, that natural course is short-circuited by maladaptive patterns that reinforce the negative narrative. The mind's autopilot defaults to negativity, pulling individuals deeper into the same loops with each cycle. Physiological responses accompany this mental churn. The stress hormone cortisol floods the system, triggering tension in muscles and shallow breathing. Sleepless nights ensue, and fatigue weakens the capacity to break the loops. Cognitive resources wane, making it harder to employ rational thinking or healthy coping strategies. Social withdrawal often follows, as one avoids interactions that might trigger further analysis or uncomfortable emotions. Each loop tightens its grip, fostering a sense of helplessness. If the mind insists on returning to negativity, how can one ever escape? Although these pitfalls feel insurmountable, recognizing the mechanics of negative thought loops offers a first foothold toward freedom. Adlerian psychology suggests that such cycles arise from safeguarding behaviors, strategies developed to protect self-esteem, but which inadvertently entrench negative patterns. Understanding these behaviors and their underlying beliefs creates an opportunity to disrupt the cycle and redirect mental energy toward more adaptive pathways. Protecting fragile self-esteem, individuals often resort to safeguarding behaviors, strategies designed to ward off perceived threats, but which inadvertently cement negative thought loops. Adler identified common tactics such as excuse-making, withdrawal, aggression, and moving backward, each rooted in an underlying inferiority feeling. Excuse makers deflect responsibility by attributing shortcomings to external factors. I can't focus on this project because the deadline is unrealistic, or I'm only unhappy because others don't appreciate me. While excuses temporarily shield fragile ego from blame, they perpetuate a narrative of helplessness, reinforcing beliefs that change lies outside personal control. Withdrawal manifests as retreat from challenges and social interactions. When negative thoughts swirl, I'll embarrass myself if I speak up. Individuals escape into isolation, avoiding situations that could disconfirm their fears. This flight strategy may appear protective, but actually deprives them of mastery experiences, depriving the mind of counter-evidence that undermines negative self-perceptions. Over time, the pattern confirms the avoidance rationale. See, I knew I couldn't handle it, sealing the loop more tightly. Aggression emerges when safeguarding takes a more external form. Instead of drawing inward, some lash out to defend shaken self-worth, criticizing others before they can criticize, dismissing feedback as stupid, or dominating conversations to mask inner insecurity. Though aggression may temporarily restore a semblance of control, it fractures relationships and deepens isolation, further fueling negative narratives. No one respects me, I can't trust people. The real threat, self-doubt, remains unaddressed. Moving backward, another safeguarding tactic, involves reverting to earlier developmental roles, sulking, blame-shifting, or appealing for help in ways that emphasize dependency. For instance, under stress, adults may unconsciously seek reassurance through needy requests reminiscent of childhood. Can you just tell me everything will be okay, rather than exercising their own problem-solving abilities? This retreat into dependency stunts the growth of self-confidence and perpetuates thoughts of inadequacy. I can't manage on my own. Each safeguarding behavior offers immediate relief from anxiety or shame, but by avoiding genuine problem-solving, they cement the very beliefs they aim to escape. Excuses externalize failure. Withdrawal deprives opportunities for success. Aggression alienates support, and regression undermines autonomy. Together they form a safety net woven from negative thoughts, a self-reinforcing mechanism that keeps individuals trapped in repetitive cycles. Adler posited that recognizing these behaviors marks the turning point for change. Awareness of one's default safeguarding responses is the first key. Noticing the impulse to blame circumstances, withdraw, lash out, or regress. Mindful observation of these patterns during moments of distress illuminates their connection to negative thought loops. For example, catching oneself drafting an excuse for missing a deadline can prompt an internal question. Am I avoiding accountability because I fear failure? Such metacognitive reflection opens space for alternative responses rooted in self-responsibility. Once identified, individuals can replace safeguarding behaviors with constructive alternatives that foster courage and social interest. Instead of excuses, they practice accountability. I missed my timeline because I underestimated the task. Next time, I'll allocate more buffer time. In place of withdrawal, they engage small, raising a point in a meeting or joining a brief social check-in, even when anxious, testing the accuracy of negative predictions and collecting evidence of resilience. When aggression surfaces, they pause to reframe criticism as feedback. Their comment might help me improve, then ask clarifying questions rather than broadcasting defensiveness. To counter regression, they affirm personal agency. I have handled similar challenges before. I can find a solution again. Implementing these alternatives requires gradual exposure. As with any habit, change happens through repeated practice and reflection. Individuals might set weekly goals, respond to a challenging email without an excuse, attend one networking event despite discomfort, solicit peer feedback without defensiveness, and solve a problem independently rather than seeking rescue. Journaling each attempt, outlining the situation, the old safeguarding impulse, the chosen alternative, and the outcome builds insight and confidence. Over time, successes accumulate, demonstrating that embracing discomfort leads to growth, undermining the old patterns. Adler emphasized the role of courage in dismantling safeguarding behaviors. Courage, he argued, is not absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Each time individuals choose accountability over excuses, connection over withdrawal, openness over aggression, and autonomy over regression, they exercise courage. These micro breakthroughs incrementally weaken the fortress of negative thoughts inviting new beliefs. I can learn from mistakes. I belong in social settings. Feedback helps me grow. I can solve problems on my own. Equally important is cultivating social interest, redirecting focus from protecting fragile self to contributing to others. When instead of complaining about unfair deadlines, one offers suggestions for process improvements, the mind shifts from self-protection to collective benefit, dissolving self-centered anxiety. Inviting a colleague to co-develop solutions replaces isolation with cooperation, building supportive relationships that buffer negative thought spirals. Finally, creating environmental supports reinforces the new patterns. Visual cues, sticky notes reading "accountability first" or "courage over comfort" serve as reminders to interrupt safeguarding impulses. Scheduled peer check-ins provide accountability partners who can gently call out excuses or defensiveness. And carving out reflective time each evening to review successes in choosing alternatives cements the new habit loops. Through conscious identification of safeguarding behaviors and deliberate practice of Adlerian alternatives grounded in courage and social interest, individuals can dismantle the self-perpetuating cycles of negative thought. In place of protective but limiting patterns, they cultivate adaptive responses that unlock personal agency and foster constructive engagement with the world. Breaking free from repetitive negative thought loops begins with deliberate interruption strategies that shift attention to new stimuli and behaviors. One effective technique involves employing thought-stopping cues, visual, auditory, or physical triggers that halt rumination in its tracks. For example, placing a small card on the desk with the word "pause" catches the eye when negative thought patterns resurface. At that moment, the individual physically taps the card and says "stop" aloud, creating a clear mental boundary between obsessive loops and conscious choice. This simple action interrupts the automatic replay, disengaging the brain's default negativity circuits and opening a brief window for redirection. Once the loop is halted, it's crucial to redirect attention to a neutral or positive activity. A structured 7-11 breathing exercise offers immediate relief, inhaling for a count of 7, exhaling for 11, and repeating until physiological tension subsides. The emphasis on extended exhalation stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, counteracting stress-induced arousal. Alternatively, a quick shift to physical movement, standing up for a brief stretch, walking around the room, or performing a few jumping jacks, releases built-up tension and resets neural pathways away from cyclic thoughts. Environmental adjustments further reinforce these interruption efforts. Individuals can curate a break corner in their workspace, a place minimally associated with stressors, stocked with items that engage the senses, a small plant to observe, a tactile stress ball, or a playlist of instrumental music. Upon recognizing a negative loop, one moves physically to this space, signaling to the brain that it's time for a different mode of thinking. Over time, these contextual cues become conditioned triggers for mental reset, making disruptions more automatic and effective. In addition to immediate interruption, scheduled worry appointments provide a systematic outlet for persistent concerns. Rather than allowing rumination to invade every moment, individuals designate a 30-minute block each day, preferably mid-afternoon, to deliberately engage with worries. During that period, they write down recurring negative thoughts, evaluate each concern's realistic probability, and generate potential solutions. When the slot ends, they close the worry journal and resume other activities. This temporal boundary contains rumination, trains the mind to postpone obsessive loops, and affirms that there is a set time for addressing concerns, reducing their intrusion elsewhere. Behavioral activation techniques also play a pivotal role in disrupting negativity cycles. Identifying small, achievable tasks that align with personal values, completing a short household chore, cooking a healthy snack, or sending a supportive message to a friend generates a sense of accomplishment that counterbalances doom-laden thinking. Each action shifts the individual from passive ruminator to active participant in life. Tracking these activities in a simple log reinforces progress. When negative thoughts threaten, reviewing the list of completed tasks reminds one of personal efficacy, providing concrete evidence against beliefs of helplessness. Adlerian psychology underscores the importance of moving toward goals as a means of breaking negative loops. Setting micro goals, such as writing 100 words on a personal project, reading a single chapter of a book, or practicing a 5-minute mindfulness exercise, redirects energy from inward rumination to outward accomplishment. Each micro-goal acts as a stepping stone, creating momentum that gradually shifts neural activity from default negative loops to constructive pathways. Celebrating incremental victories, no matter how small, nurtures an upward spiral of positive feedback. Social engagement provides another powerful disruption tactic. Negative loops thrive in isolation. Sharing thoughts with a trusted friend, mentor, or therapist externalizes the internal narrative, making it easier to see distortions and receive alternative perspectives. Simply telling another person, "I keep worrying I'll mess up tomorrow," invites empathy and rational counterarguments. You've handled similar situations well in the past that weaken the loop's grip. Group activities such as team sports or creative workshops immerse individuals in novel environments, reducing cognitive bandwidth for rumination and fostering social interest. Technology can assist in these disruption strategies through guided apps that prompt timely interventions. Alarms or notifications at random intervals remind users to perform a brief check-in. Are you in a negative thought loop? If so, pause and breathe. Mindfulness apps, offering short, timed meditations, help anchor attention to the present moment rather than dwelling on imagined past or future negatives. When integrated into daily routines, these prompts build automaticity for interruption practices. Cognitive reframing exercises complement behavioral disruptions by challenging the content of negative loops. After interrupting a loop, individuals consult a prepared list of balanced questions, such as, what evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? If a friend shared this concern, what advice would I give? Systematically evaluating thoughts through this Socratic lens weakens distorted beliefs and opens mental space for more realistic appraisals. While reframing overlaps with deeper cognitive work, even brief question and answer sessions following interruption can blunt the intensity of negative loops. Consistency across multiple strategies amplifies their effectiveness. Combining thought-stopping cues with environmental break corners, scheduled worry appointments, behavioral activation, social engagement, and technological reminders creates a multifaceted safeguard against rumination. As each component reinforces the others, individuals develop a robust toolkit that catches negative loops early, interrupts them decisively, and redirects attention toward constructive outlets. Ultimately, disrupting repetitive negative thoughts is an active process requiring both practical techniques and commitment to change. By interrupting loops through cues, movement, and environmental shifts, scheduling focused worry time, activating behavior aligned with goals, engaging socially, leveraging technology, and initiating reframing questions, individuals reclaim control over their mental landscape. These interventions lay the groundwork for deeper cognitive and routine transformations, steering the mind away from cyclical negativity and toward adaptive, life-enhancing patterns. Changing the content of repetitive negative thoughts requires learning to see them as hypotheses rather than facts. Cognitive reframing begins with the practice of thought records, where individuals note each distressing thought, its emotional intensity, and the situation that triggered it. For example, the thought, "I always fail at presentations," may appear whenever someone prepares to speak in a meeting. By writing it down, labeling its emotion, fear, shame, and rating its intensity on a scale from 1 to 10, individuals externalize the thought and create psychological distance. This distance is essential for examining the thought's validity, rather than accepting it at face value. Once documented, the next step involves challenging the thought with evidence. Individuals list supporting evidence, instances when they stumbled or received criticism, and contradictory evidence, moments of success, positive feedback, or effective preparation. Often the supporting list is brief, while the contradictory list is more extensive, but encoded in memory, the negative examples loom larger. Cognitive reframing shines a light on this imbalance, guiding one to recalibrate beliefs. In the presentation example, recalling several successful talks, met rows of nodding colleagues, follow-up compliments, clear handouts, provides concrete proof that failure is neither inevitable nor universal. After gathering evidence, individuals generate alternative interpretations that align with reality. Instead of "I always fail," a reframed belief may read, "I have struggled with presentations sometimes, but I've also delivered several well-received talks when I prepared thoroughly." Language matters. Using qualifiers such as sometimes and often rather than absolutist words like always or never softens rigid thinking. As these new interpretations gain traction, the associated emotion's intensity decreases. The fear rating for next week's meeting might drop from 9 to 6, making it easier to approach without paralyzing anxiety. Adlerian reframing emphasizes the role of purposeful striving toward one's goals. Negative negative thoughts often center on perceived deficits. I'm not good enough. Reframed thoughts shift focus to growth. I'm learning to communicate more clearly each time. This growth mindset reframes mistakes as data points rather than dead ends. To reinforce this view, individuals can add a third column in their thought record titled Action Steps, noting specific behaviors that support improvement, attending a public speaking workshop, practicing in front of a colleague, or refining visual aids. Connecting reframed beliefs to purposeful actions deepens the shift from static self-criticism to dynamic self-improvement. A complementary reframing tool involves perspective taking. Imagining a compassionate mentor's viewpoint invites kinder internal dialogue. When a harsh self-judgment arises, one pauses and asks, what would a supportive friend say? If a thought reads, I'm incompetent, the imagined friend might respond, you're capable and have handled challenges before. What support do you need now? This exercise cultivates self-compassion, counterbalancing punitive internal voices and fostering an environment where constructive feedback replaces unrelenting critique. Another technique uses visual metaphors to represent negative thoughts as transient weather patterns or passing clouds. Individuals imagine each worry as a dark cloud drifting across a vast sky, noting that clouds neither define nor obscure the sky's expanse forever. This metaphor eases identification with thoughts, emphasizing their impermanence. Paired with periodic visualization practice, such as 5 minutes of mindful breathing focused on watching thoughts appear and dissipate, this framing promotes acceptance without rumination. Over time, the brain learns to observe thoughts rather than engage them automatically. Group-based reframing amplifies individual efforts. In a cognitive reframing workshop or peer support group, participants share a common negative thought, expose its weaknesses through collective questioning, and propose alternative frames together. Hearing diverse perspectives often reveals insights one might miss alone. For instance, when multiple people challenge the thought, I'm unlikable, group members may recall specific friendly interactions, highlighting that the belief stems from selective memory. This communal reframing strengthens the new, balanced belief and builds social interest as individuals help each other grow. Technology can also support cognitive reframing. Digital thought record apps guide users through documenting triggers, emotions, evidence, alternative interpretations, and action steps. Automated reminders prompt daily entries, making reframing a consistent habit. Saved thought records become a personalized library of progress, allowing users to revisit early entries and witness evolving patterns, an encouraging reminder of transformation over time. Finally, integrating reframed beliefs into daily affirmations consolidates the new mindset. Crafting short, positive statements, I improve with each presentation, or I am learning and growing every day, and repeating them each morning primes the mind for constructive thinking. Combining affirmations with micro-actions, preparing one slide at a time rather than cramming the night before, anchors reframed thoughts in behavior. Over time, the cascade from reframed belief to consistent action solidifies a resilient mental framework, breaking the hold of repetitive negative thoughts and illuminating paths towards self-assurance and adaptive striving. Transforming cognitive gains into sustained well-being depends on embedding positive routines into daily life. Rituals that reinforce adaptive thought patterns create a supportive structure, gradually reshaping the brain's default operations away from negativity and toward optimism. The cornerstone of this process is the establishment of a morning mindset ritual. Upon waking, individuals spend 5 minutes engaged in intentional thought, beginning with deep breathing to center awareness. They then review a short list of self-affirmations, statements born from the reframed beliefs cultivated earlier. I learn from challenges. I deserve rest and renewal. I contribute value to my world. Speaking these aloud or writing them in a dedicated journal primes the mind for a day oriented around possibility rather than pitfall. Immediately following affirmations, a brief gratitude scan shifts focus outward. Individuals identify 3 specific elements of their lives for which they feel gratitude, ranging from a supportive colleague's recent help to the simple pleasure of morning sunlight. This practice counteracts negativity bias, our tendency to weigh adverse experiences more heavily than positive ones, by intentionally spotlighting positive aspects. Over time, the gratitude scan rewires neural circuits to notice and appreciate small joys, mitigating the seedbed in which negative loops sprout. Next comes an energy planning session. Drawing from Adlerian emphasis on purposeful striving, individuals list 1 to 3 manageable tasks aligned with personal values. These micro goals might include drafting an outline for a creative project, taking a midday walk, or reaching out to a friend. Crucially, these goals are framed as opportunities rather than obligations, reinforcing a sense of agency. Checking off each task throughout the day triggers a dopamine response, our brain's natural reward signal, strengthening habits of proactive engagement and providing concrete evidence of personal efficacy. The environmental design strategy further supports positive routines. Individuals curate their physical and digital spaces to minimize triggers of negative loops and maximize reminders of progress. Workspaces display motivational images or quotes tied to reframed beliefs, while negative reminders, old mementos of past failures, are tucked away or removed. Digital environments adopt similar tactics. Home screens feature apps for mood tracking or guided meditation. Auto-lock screens display daily affirmations. These contextual cues subtly prompt adaptive thinking throughout the day, reducing reliance on memory alone. Regularly scheduled check-in moments act as micro-reflective pauses. Setting hourly or bi-hourly alarms prompts individuals to pause for 10 seconds, assessing current thoughts and emotions. If negative loops emerge, they deploy quick interruption measures such as the thought-stopping cue or 7-11 breathing before returning to task. These mini check-ins build mindfulness into routine activities, transforming sporadic interventions into habitual self-regulation. Over days, awareness of thought patterns becomes second nature, enabling early detection and disruption of negativity. In addition to morning rituals and check-ins, evening processing rituals solidify gains and prepare the mind for restorative sleep. Before bedtime, individuals review the day's micro-goal achievements and note moments of adaptive thinking or effective cycle interruptions. They write a brief brain dump, transferring lingering worries to paper, then close the session with a relaxation exercise such as progressive muscle release or guided imagery of a peaceful scene. This transition routine signals to the brain that the day's cognitive work is complete, reducing nocturnal rumination and promoting deeper rest. Social routines enrich positive practice through shared accountability. Weekly gatherings, whether informal coffee chats or structured support groups, allow individuals to report on routine adherence, share challenges in maintaining rituals, and exchange encouragement. Witnessing peers navigate similar journeys fosters empathy and normalizes setbacks, reducing shame when routines falter. Groups might rotate facilitation roles, giving each member opportunities to lead guided meditations, share reframing exercises, or propose new ritual ideas, reinforcing social interest and collective growth. Supplementary tools, such as habit tracking apps and wearable devices, provide objective feedback on routine consistency. Logging each completed ritual, morning affirmations, midday check-ins, evening processing generates visual streaks that motivate continuation. Wearable sensors can gently vibrate to signal scheduled practices, and app notifications can link directly to guided audio or video resources. Integrating technology ensures that support is timely and integrated into the flow of life. Seasonal or contextual ritual adaptations maintain routine freshness and relevance. As seasons change, individuals swap gratitude scans for nature-based observations, identifying signs of seasonal transition or adjust affirmations to suit evolving goals. During periods of high stress, project launches, or personal transitions, rituals emphasize resilience themes and longer reflection periods. Adapting routines prevents habituation and sustains engagement, ensuring practices remain meaningful rather than rote. Finally, organizations and communities can reinforce individual routines by promoting culture-wide wellness initiatives. Workplaces might institute Mindful Mondays, inviting teams to start meetings with a collective breathing exercise or gratitude round. Schools can embed short reframing breaks into class schedules, teaching students thought record basics alongside academic subjects. Community centers can host regular breakout plan workshops, spreading Alfred Adler's principles beyond therapy rooms. When environments prioritize mental habits alongside skills training, individuals receive external support that amplifies their personal routines. By weaving together morning mindset rituals, gratitude scans, purpose-driven micro-goals, environmental design, micro-reflective check-ins, evening processing, social accountability, technology integration, adaptive modifications, and community initiatives, individuals create a robust architecture for positive thought habits. This comprehensive breakout plan not only disrupts repetitive negative loops, but nurtures a resilient mindset grounded in purposeful striving and social interest. Over time, the cumulative effect of these routines transforms the way the mind navigates challenges, ensuring that optimism, self-compassion, and constructive action become the default pathways of thought.